don't know how you follow some of the great speeches we've heard today. I guess as someone who's been a lawyer for many years and an admirer of the Supreme Court despite its many faults, I'm sort of ashamed today. You know, during the founding era, there was a very common statement. The statement was about sophism or sophistry. Some of you may know what sophistry was. The Greek philosophers used to go from town to town and show off their rhetorical skills. They could prove that black was white, or that you were a cow, or that your wife was a man, or that your husband was a woman. And then they could turn around and use their rhetorical devices to prove exactly the opposite. That's sophistry. The facile, misleading, deceptive use of language to advance a proposition that is untenable on its face. And that's what we saw in the parts of the Supreme Court opinion that tried to uphold Obamacare yesterday. We saw that repeatedly. We saw, for example, the statement that health care is commerce, that health insurance is commerce, even though the founders themselves assured us that it wasn't. That commerce was a matter for, that health care was a matter for the states. We saw some of the judges quote the great Chief Justice John Marshall, his opinion Gibbons versus Ogden, to support Obamacare, without ever mentioning that in that very opinion, Justice Marshall said that health laws of every description are outside the federal sphere and a matter for the states only. Yep. We were told that the power to regulate the collection of activities called commerce includes the power to regulate non-commerce. That sitting in your living room doing nothing is activity, and therefore you are subject to federal regulation. We were told when Obamacare was passed that the penalty for not buying insurance was not a tax. It never would have passed the legislature had not the American people been assured it was not a tax. But when it reached the Supreme Court, the Obama administration argued that it was a tax. And the only reason it was upheld, according to Chief Justice Roberts, was because it was a tax. In fact, it was not a tax under a statute that enabled the Supreme Court to take control of the case, and that it was a tax to enable the Supreme Court to uphold the law. That is sophistry. Those are great examples of sophistry. And the founders themselves told us that sophistry could be the death of constitutional government. It could be the death of the rule of law and of what we stand for as a people and of our country. Now let me tell you that it is commonly taught in law schools. I know this because I used to be one of the guys who didn't teach this but heard it. It is commonly taught in law schools that the highest authority on the United States Constitution is the United States Supreme Court. Do you believe that? No. The highest authority on the United States Constitution are we, the people of the United States. And yesterday's opinion is subject to appeal, and we are the highest court of the land. And the hearing on this case is November, and the Supreme Court will be reversed.